You're listening to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast.
All right, Paul, by the time this comes out, it is New Year's Eve. And we are going to talk about something that you've been wanting to talk about for a very long time. You kind of touched on it in a previous episode. By that gasp, I'm sure the listeners realize that I'm totally springing this on you. You don't even know what I'm talking about right now, even if you suspect. So we've had no preparation. We have not given this any forethought, but we are going to talk about what if life was a simulation?
Yay, all right, let's do it.
All right. So set the parameters again. You know this better than I do. What were the three? Was it three?
Yeah. Okay, so it's called the simulation argument. And it's an argument, not a theory, because one of the three presented is true, unarguably is true. Now, which one of those three is the truth? That's where, personal perception and all that comes into mind. But so the three is that we are living in a simulation. We will eventually get to the point where we can create a simulation, or we will try to create a simulation, but will, as a human race, die before we get there. Okay. So again, we're either in one, we're trying to make one, or we're trying to make one, but we won't get as far, before we break the earth.
All right. All right. So let's open up the conversation. What do you think is going on right now?
I find it fascinating because it seems like no matter what, we are trying to, ever since, probably, what was it, mid 80s or whenever Maxis came out with something as silly as SimCity. We definitely have a fascination with that. I think the human race, we kind of like to control things, to cultivate things, whether it's a bloody ant farm or sea monkeys or even just owning a dog. There's that part of us that likes to do those sort of things. And now with technology, we've kind of seen how an ancestral simulation might play out with games like The Sims. So I definitely agree that we will probably either get there or die trying. It's kind of unfortunately looking like the latter with the way we're treating the Earth. And then as far as whether we're in a simulation or not, I don't know. I honestly have not decided. I'm very open to it. I think it's fascinating. Mm-hmm. I think that the fact that we're like completely alone in the universe, as far as we know right now, and then combined with how just vast the space is and how many different, planets and things like that there are, it can start to look a little bit like a purpose-made design. Like maybe we're not, if I was to create a simulation, I didn't want them coming into contact with their creators or anything else that would maybe muck up the Truman Show. I'd probably make it so that they just couldn't get into touch with anything else, and it would just look devastatingly vast and just demoralizingly large to even try and find something. So I could kind of see it.
Okay, well, how about this then? For the purpose of this episode, let's look for clues throughout life. Like, what suggests that we are in a simulation versus what suggests that we absolutely are not.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. Well, let me put that on you to begin with, because I've had a little more time to think about it. But is there anything that, like, without thinking too hard, immediately springs to mind for you, for or against it?
I think it's kind of tough, because I think with a simulation as advanced as ours is, I mean, who knows? This is also kind of I admit the flaws of this argument, because what we consider advanced could be very primitive to whoever created the simulation that we live in. So we got to ask ourselves, like, okay, well, number one, what is the end game? Like, what is the actual purpose? Like, why would they create something this in depth and this much to the point that you and I actually believe that we have consciousness, that we actually believe we have souls, that we actually like believe there is a meaning to life, only for us to actually have been created with none forethought? Like, according to Rick and Morty, some people are just here to generate energy and power a battery for somebody's car. But that's actually a great episode. I'm laughing.
It really is, yeah.
But, so what exactly is the end game for the simulation that we live in? And it's like, they say the truth is stranger than fiction. So there's a lot of random weird stuff that happens that I don't know. Is that just a random number generator, or is that just like the chaos of life versus like would a simulation not be a little bit more structured? For instance, if we watch a movie and characters do stupid stuff, we think, we hold it against that movie that characters did stupid stuff, even though in real life people do way stupider stuff all the time, right? So we have this expectation in our games, in our movies, in our literature, any form of fiction that we create, we have this higher expectation for them to perform compared to what is actually all around us. So this either means that whoever created us is way stupider, or they really want us to be stupid, because there's some pretty stupid people in this world. So I think, in the same way that you say that of those three, one of those three theories must be true, obviously granted for the sake of argument that we are in a simulation, two arguments must be true. Those who created us are way stupider than we are, or they have a reason to keep us stupid.
Right. I like the way you frame that, because you're right. I see what you've done there. It's actually quite brilliant, because one of the two, in that case, it inarguably would have to be true. The first one raises immediate issues with their intelligence level. If they were able to create some sort of bio or organic type of simulation, assuming we are flesh and blood, that's the part of this that honestly kind of blows my mind, is wondering how to simulate things that have at least what seems to us as like an organic life, which I guess you could argue all day whether or not that is even the case, or if that's just our wired perception, like you said, in this case, assuming we're in one. So I would have to say that their intelligence has to stack up, but that could also mean that their intelligence is probably, it could be different to how we perceive intelligence. There could be, in other words, like a tremendous disregard for almost morality or empathy, because it does seem rather cruel to kind of play with us like this, if that was the case. And I think I'm being polite and mild by saying that, because it's right kind of messed up to potentially do something like that. Yeah, I mean, it brings so many questions to mind, like you said, as to why, what's the benefit, but it also, I think that's like almost a very human way of looking at things, where we assume that there's got to be a reason for things. And so, what if it is something as simple and relatable to us on this show as nostalgia? For them, I know a lot of times they would call it like an ancestral simulation, for them to maybe have some sort of nostalgic connection to the past and how they came to be in their vast technological superiority, or whatever the case would be, if they were able to have created us. Maybe it's like a nostalgia trip for them.
Here's actually another question then, to kind of put a slightly different angle on it. Let's assume that we're in a simulation. So we were created as a simulation by somebody considerably more advanced than we are. That would have to be the case, right? They would have to be more advanced than we are. So why in this programming would they allow us to wonder if we are in a simulation? Like, why would they give us self-awareness to the point that we are capable of questioning the truth?
Right. That's a great question. I mean, I guess I would counter it immediately by saying, if they had such, again, and for everybody listening, we're just playing with the idea of that right now that we are in a simulation. So if they had the capability to design something of this grandeur, I would imagine that they would have, equal capability to keep it within control. So that being said, I suppose you could set parameters that will allow us what we perceive as free will without crossing that line that you're kind of describing, crossing a line into enlightenment, I guess we could say. So in other words, allowing us to ponder it, but not giving us anything to grab onto would probably be the solution there. So it's
I have a better answer for you, to be perfectly honest. If we subscribe to the Occam's razor, where like the simplest answer is likely to be the correct one, I think that our ability to question our own existence is the programmer's meta joke.
Yeah.
We are literally just like, NPCs with typed in dialogue. What if we are actually being controlled right now as somebody plays a game?
Yeah, and the other programmer's like, well, what can they do with that information? And the other guy's like, nothing. Go fucking mad, basically. Look out, and they'll invent religions, they'll do whatever they can to find meaning. And this, we programmed none of that in there. Yeah, I like your answer better, genuinely. And I will say too, if anybody listening is perhaps, because I've had this conversation with some very religious people who while I'm not particularly religious, I have a lot of respect for. I'm not an atheist, and I'll leave it there. You can fill in the blanks in the middle of those two statements, but I have respect for religious people, and I'll just say this type of argument, it doesn't rule out the idea of a creator or things like that. Like, the way I would kind of look at it is that because let's say we were created, there's a lot of this in Egyptology where
if this is a simulation, we obviously clearly have a creator.
Exactly. And I'm not even saying the end game is that there are gods. I'm just simply saying that, well, they probably have a creator too. So you could just keep going down that route until you find your god. And I say that genuinely. I'm not trying to be facetious or anything like that. Like, whatever made us made them, and so forth and so on, until you get to who you perceive to be God. It doesn't rule that person out of this equation, in my opinion.
So do you suspect the possibility, or does this imply the possibility that whoever created our simulation could be in a simulation of their own?
Yeah, it's a good way to actually blow your own mind. Yeah, because this could, like a kaleidoscope, this could just go on infinitely. I suppose you could say, if there's an infinite amount of monkeys, one of them would eventually recreate the works of Shakespeare, I think I've heard said before.
Not quite like that, but it's very close. The point is there.
Yeah, the point is there, thank you. Yes, you're right. I mean, I'm not sure at what point that would stop. One thing it makes me wonder, and this is kind of steering away from that, just because it hurts my head a bit, is you got me thinking as far as the why, which admittedly I've not given much thought to previous to this conversation, but I was just kind of picturing, I was thinking back to that old Simpsons episode where Lisa accidentally created life.
I don't
do you remember that one?
I don't actually remember that one.
Yeah, Lisa, God, it was probably like one of the first 6 seasons.
Oh, wow. Then I really should know that one.
Yeah, she created life by accident. I think Bart had something to do with it. It's a bit too foggy for me to help you remember, in other words, because I don't remember any other details than that, and I'm sure a few people listening do remember it, and they're probably yelling at us already. So I'll keep going, but basically, this life was created out of some sort of like bacteria or whatever. Again, I forget the scenario, but the life eventually became somewhat of a threat. And it almost makes me wonder, like, if the people that created us, let's say, the people, maybe things got out of hand for them, and at some point some sort of life-ending, universe-shattering event happened, so they've created like a sped-up version of their ancestry to see how it played out, so that they can go back and, not go back, but so they can preemptively stop it from happening. So a little bit of Minority Report is kind of thrown in here with this theory, where it's like, let's simulate, how this happened, how this outbreak comes to be, and if we can simulate it, we can pin down, the where and what's and who's of who created it. Which that's more kind of sad, because that just makes us feel more of like an experiment than anything else, which I suppose we are. And, it's kind of scratch all over, because like you said, sometimes the easiest solution, or the best solution, is the easiest, and if you were to kind of psychologically dive into why we have like an ant farm, or even, keep rodents or dogs or cats as pets, a lot of times there's not a real super complex answer to that. I'm sure Freud has one, etc. But at the end of the day, the answer, an acceptable answer, sometimes is because it's fun, or because it's comforting, or because it's entertaining. And, what if it is just nothing more than that?
Do you think that if we're a simulation, do you think our world is interactive with the creators? Do you think there are player characters amongst us?
Oh man, that's a great question. That's so hard to answer, because I feel like it's whatever they want it to be. So now I'm trying to imagine, the benefits of that. Would they want to? And I guess I would say yes, because I think that would make it almost more fun. So then I'll bounce back to you. Do you think that if you were a player character in our simulation, would you be the Hollywood celebrities or the Bill Gates? Would you be like an influencer? Would you make sure that you were like super rich and famous and things like that? Like, would those be the people we should look to for being the player characters?
Well, if I were a player character, I desperately need a hint book because I'm not doing very well at this life. No, I'm kidding. I'm actually very quite content with my life. I just, I'm not objectively good at it, but I'm content. I'm happy. I'm not getting a high score at anything, that's for sure. I don't know. It's tough because it's kind of like you start letting this get to you, and you start questioning, and you start having to think about things more. How much are we taking for granted? At some point in the recent past, you went to the store and bought some food and came home, right?
Mm.
Now, the cashier, the clerk who helped you ring in your food, do you know that person personally?
No.
Do you know who they are, where they live, what they do after work?
Only Susan. No, I don't.
Like, can you guarantee that is a person who exists outside of that one context?
No.
Like, do we ever know that they're like? How many times have you met me in person?
Oh God, yeah. This is taking a very very sci-fi twist right now.
Yeah. How do you really know me beyond a voice and a Facebook profile?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'm subscribed. That's super freaky. You're right. There's only a finite amount of people that we can trace back to their origins, and the rest could, for all we know, be avatars.
Yeah. And so, we do meet people. We do understand, like, oh, hey, this is a person who has actually gone out of the way to become friends, and I did hang out with them after work. So, there are a few people that I've made friends with because they worked at a place where I needed to get stuff, whether it's beer or supplements or food or anything like that. There are people who did come from a relationship of requirement. You have a thing that I want, and here's my money, so please give me that, which then blossomed into, I know these people personally, and they do have lives and families and all this stuff that clearly is going on when I'm not around. But how do we know that those aren't the player characters and the rest are NPCs? How do we know that the person we walk past on the street is somebody that continues to exist if we never see them again? Right? Obviously we do. I'm not saying that they don't, but then you think about simulation theory and it's like, but do they?
Right. And especially if you are inside of that simulation, and that simulation is a program, and that program has final say on the world as you perceive it. So if you decided to get in your head that you wanted to get to the bottom of this and just start finding, the most solid proof that you could on just a group of 10 random strangers to really lock down their date of birth and as much detailed imagery on said birth or whatever that you could find to convince yourself, I would imagine the program would be able to make adjustments on the fly to give you what you should see. So it makes you feel almost a little bit helpless or hopeless, rather, that there isn't, you're never going to actually find any answers. You'll just continuously be convinced that you found answers, whether or not they're as you see them or not.
Now, here's a way to know whether or not you're an NPC or like one of those temporary NPCs or not, is that if you were an NPC, you would just be given enough information to have your backstory. If you could definitively recall all the things that go on in between, it's safe to say that you are a player character. You would not have just been programmed in for like the mundane drive home from work. Right? You would not be programmed with the memory of the fact of you were walking one day and you tripped on the sidewalk. That could happen, but you would not remember that if you are a character that ceases to exist as soon as you're no longer on screen. Right?
Right.
So you know that you have this sort of this through line that connects your memories. If your memories were implanted, all you would have are those memories, but you do have the connectivity between them. So you can tell that you are something which exists constantly. So if you and I cross paths and you are somebody who obviously, I don't really know as for sure because there's no real trace of you outside of name on a screen, to be perfectly honest. But, you meet these people and you know that, okay, well, here's a person who clearly exists. And obviously you are continuing to exist when you are no longer in their presence. So you're not an NPC. So that's one way you can figure that out. But then you got to think about like all the other people, because when you play a game like Grand Theft Auto and, you walk down the sidewalk and there's all these characters there, they don't have backstories. They don't have actual lives. They are only programmed to know what to do in that exact moment. Right?
Right.
So it makes you wonder about when you go into a mall and you walk past all these people, how many of them are going to continue to exist once you walk past them?
Right, exactly. Yeah, they're there to serve the environment and nothing more. So
Yeah.
Your existence makes them exist and nothing else.
Yeah, so when you see that one person who just looks like they're just going through the motions of the day, they're probably not a fleshed out character in the simulation. They're just like you said, their environment, their background. They're just they're padding.
Yeah, your I don't know, your soccer moms and your bar dwellers. I mean, there's so many just of those generic stereotypes of people out there that could start to fill in these gaps rather quickly. I guess the stereotypes is the best way to say it. The khaki short wearing lawn mowing dad and the short haired let me see your manager Karens and things like this.
Okay, so what if we're all player characters? What if we're like a giant MMO game such that there are no NPCs, but the world is simulated?
Yes, and this is the one I probably would believe to be the case more than the prior. Maybe out of convenience, because the prior one is just kind of freaky. But yeah, I've kind of pictured it or visualized it as, that we all are. Or I'm a rogue programmer, and that's why I'm so interested in this, because I'm trying to cry for help and get everyone to pay attention to what's going on. Now you don't know what to believe. No, so I kind of imagine is that we're all player characters in this simulated environment. And as I was touching on earlier, as far as our limitations with space travel, even knowing the vastness of it, I kind of think of space, the video game equivalent to like a grayed out area of the map, one in which there is no level we can get to unlock. It's just a grayed out layer, part of the map, to give us the impression that things are bigger than us. And there's more out there, but by design, we're never to actually satisfy that curiosity.
Mm-hmm. So the Big Bang, is that the power on?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The sound of the Big Bang was actually Windows 3.1 startup jingle.
It's booting from C drive.
Deja vu was having to switch floppy disks. Mm-hmm. It's fascinating because you get these brilliant minds out there. People. Honestly, not the best example, but the first one that comes to mind is Elon Musk, who is brilliant. But for my argument, I had some physicists like Brian Cox I probably should mention instead. But the people like that who are just like, hey, Elon, do you think we're in a simulation? And they're just like, oh, I mean, absolutely. There's almost no way we're not. And I have to obviously make up my own perception. I won't believe something just because somebody I'm told is smart does.
Right.
But I do have to pause and recognize when somebody, has a grasp on things that I perhaps do not. And when it comes to the scientific or the technologically minded people, for them to just, a large number of them to just be like, oh, I mean, absolutely. We're trying to, so one day we either will or we'll kill the earth first. But because of the fact that life naturally tends to try and make simulations means that, we basically have to be. And again, this is according to them, their words, not mine, but it does give it some hell of, it really makes me think.
I would say that we can't be in a simulation, because if we were simulated, you would have been programmed to talk into the mic.
I would have been programmed to not talk into the mic just enough to get you to say your thing, because that's That's that real Laurel and Hardy thing that the creators want from us, you know? I don't know who Laurel or Hardy is, but anyway. Just throw it out there and hope it means something to somebody.
Yeah.
I'll just talking in the mic.
All right.
Oh my god. I'll throw something else that I thought was fascinating was oh god, Dr. James Gates, I think. I'm not googling that, so forgive me if I'm wrong. Not that I think anyone is actually going to fact check that on this, but
oh, they will.
Yeah, hopefully, right? Because they're listening. But no, he was
on their simulated computers.
Just to those who are about to, just stop and wonder, what's the bloody point, man? Anyway, this Dr. James Gate, I think that's his name. He was doing like a sit down conversation on string theory with Neil deGrasse Tyson and oh god, what's that bloke's name? Who's like the main guy with string theory? It's such an average name, like a John Smith kind of name, you know. It doesn't matter. And one of the foremost guys on string theory. So basically, what the picture I'm painting here is a room of Earth's finest, some of the most intelligent people in the world. Because what I'm about to say is kind of crazy. So just know that it came from people more intelligent than myself and a lot of other people. I'm not going to say you because that's rude. I don't know your level of intelligence. But he basically claims that there was the presence of what appears to resemble, keyword, a form of computer code embedded within our own fundamental particles. And he describes it a bit more cavalier than even I did. I'm really hesitating because it sounds so miraculous. It makes you wonder why it's not common knowledge. And I don't know about you, mate, but that's a common thing that I've noticed in life is that there's some things out there that are so fascinating and often dead true that you're just like, as humans, why aren't we talking about this stuff? Like, we always just get caught up in like bloody politics or celebrity. There's so many interesting things out there that when you learn is like a confirmed truth, you're like, why doesn't everyone know that? Like, that's bloody really fascinating.
Yeah.
This is another one of those where, again, they're not saying it's actual 0 and 1 binary code in DNA, but it's highly resembles that to the point where, it's got some of the head people in physics and science, really concerned and really thinking about it. And I think things like that go into the mind of these hyper intelligent people supporting the idea of simulation. They're getting on board with it with these things in mind, where it's like, okay, so it's as hard to believe as it may sound, there is what resembles computer code, binary code in the particles of our DNA. And that's those little moments that make me, just take pause and be like, like, I'm hearing this as truth, but I'm still not believing it because I feel like this is groundbreaking news that should change the course of humanity, and it just bloody hasn't. But anyway, things like that. So does that have an effect on you? Like hearing that, really intelligent physicists are saying that they see binary within our DNA?
I totally understand the logic behind that, in the sense that if you go into the code of a game, you'll find the code for each character that exists in that game. And as such, somewhere in this universe has to be our code stored somewhere. And
right.
So the DNA seems to be a very logical explanation for that. I see the logic behind it. But rhetorically speaking, because you say like, hey, does it make you think just because all these really intelligent people think that? If this is a simulation, I don't think intellect means anything anymore. I don't think they have any capacity or reason to be more right than any other person's wild stab at it. Right.
Well put. Yeah, no, absolutely well put. Because that's the stance I take with a lot of things. We're not going to go there. Let's just say with religion or anything like that. But when it comes to the deeper questions, I always just take the stance of I don't, for myself, believe that we're. And I'm speaking for simulation right now, and nothing else. I don't think we're wired or pre-programmed with the ability to even begin to perceive that. So why just take stabs in the dark? Just be comfortable accepting our limitations. And yeah, I think there's something to be said about radio waves, Wi-Fi signal, the fact that cats can see in infrared and we can't. Like there are transmissions all around us that some creatures of this earth can see, hear, or smell that we cannot, and vice versa. So that's kind of means something to me, right? Where you have to kind of accept that we don't have the instrumentation to pick up on everything that's going on around us.
Well, I think a lot of us trying to wrangle our minds around this is we think too significantly. We think about things that are too significant and wonder why or why not. Maybe the devil's in the details. It's like if you're going to create a simulation, why would you give me eczema? Like, what does that do?
That's just a bloody dick move right there.
Hey, if somebody's controlling me, please, for the love of God, download a hex editor.
Open up bloody text edit and just...
I really need a few inches taller. That'd be great.
It's just like a DOS config. You just where it says eczema equals, you just erase true and write in false. All you gotta do.
But why is that even programmed in? Like, why is that included? Like, how is this? Is that the DLC? Like, hey, want to really piss these guys off? Here's IBS.
Yeah, it's part of the expendable skin content pack, you know? Well, all right. Here's a question. So I've not heard a definitive take on this either way. And again, it's not to say my research on this matter is all that extensive. So it's probably out there. I don't know. But question is, some people mention this in regards to just a simulation, which I guess we could say is kind of how the Matrix almost perceives things to be. We're almost more of like an experiment, I guess you could say, for fun, an ant farm, whatever. Or I hear it referred to probably more often on the academic side as an ancestral simulation, which I guess, lends some sort of credence to that nostalgia factor to they're observing how, let's say they're 10,000 years more advanced than us. So they're looking back on, how us cavemen used to do things. Do either one of those make more sense to you? Or if you were a creator of a simulation, would you just... No,
it would not make more sense to me because, again, two things have to happen. Number one, everything would be completely random, in which case we would not match. Or number two, we would, for the purpose of their experimentation, we would have to match, meaning that they would already have to know and predetermine how we are programmed, which defeats the purpose of the whole exercise.
Right, and that's how I've always looked at it, is that they'd have to already know. So watching it play out, in other words, you'd have to program the exact parameters. So it would be, by the time you're done programming something, you know the ending to there's no point. But just you saying that does make me curious. So I was going to pose the question of if you could create a simulation to simulate Earth from 10,000 BC to 1500. AD to the 1500s. Would you do it? Now, in thinking of that question for you, it did make me think, and keeping in mind what you just alluded to, that if they didn't have complete control over it, which wouldn't give them an actual ancestral model, because there would be chaos, right? Things like what's it called, the butterfly effect. One insect dying could potentially change the course of a species' entire projection. So it might be actually, I'm trying to give it a reason and purpose in saying, so let's pretend we simulate Earth from 10,000 BC to 1500s, and we do it with no parameters, and we run 100 of them. That could be fascinating to observe. So in other words, you start everybody off on equal footing at 10,000 BC, and you see where 100 different simulations end up by 1500 with no intervention. So, in one reality, the dinosaurs never died, I guess. And so the humans weren't born.
Well,
but in
by
another
10,000 BC, they would have already come and gone.
All right, I'm a dropout, mate. I didn't finish school. Gonna have to work with me a little.
All right. Okay, for those of you who are listening to this, I can't make this up. Paul and I are just getting back from about 15 to 20 minutes of having been disconnected from the internet. As of the last sentence that you heard us my computer just stopped working, and I had to completely reboot my router in order to get back online so we can finish this episode, which is a clear sign of a simulation because clearly whoever is controlling things caught wind of our conversation and shut us down. That's how this works.
Too bloody close to the truth.
Yeah. So, which actually brought up a question for me, which is that, okay, so let's say this is a simulation. Let's say there is a programmer / creator. Would they be upset if they were to find out that we were on the verge of finding out the truth?
You know, I would almost think, and I'm trying to put myself in their shoes, which are probably them like self-lacing Nikes, because that's futuristic shoes. I would think that would almost be encouraged. Like, I would think from a thesis, like some sort of experimental point of view, like could this thing I've created, could they get to the point of self-aware? So I would almost think it would be like the goal, like the end game. Like maybe we're about to end life on Earth because we've just answered their question. That was self-serving, but you know what I mean. It's because we're the first to have ever had this conversation. But you know what I mean. I would think that would actually be a good thing. Like could their model for civilization reach a point where they become self-aware of the model that they're in?
I would say based only on a precedent of like every single thing ever written about artificial intelligence, it never works out well in the end. Like, never has an artificial intelligence achieved sentience to the point of realizing that they are a simulation, or like they're a computer basically, and that somehow benefited humanity. Instead, we get AM from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. We get Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey. We get there's so many examples of AI becoming sentient and their first impulse is kill all humans.
Yes. Well, I completely agree. To clarify, when you had said, do I think they'd be upset? So no, I don't think they'd be upset, but does that mean it's good news for us? Also, no. Like you're saying, I think that's when it's time to shut it down.
Fair enough.
So the more people that are catching on, if this is the case, and when I say catching on, the more people in the science community that bring this up at TED Talks and things like that, it's probably not a good thing if we were in a simulation. Yeah. I think it would be the end of their study, and it'd be time to shut it down.
Well, you know how they say climate change is going to destroy us within our lifetimes?
Right.
Did that come about as soon as we started questioning simulation theories?
Yeah, probably pretty close. If you map the trajectories, it'd probably be damn close, if not spot on. Give or take 3 years or something at the max.
So basically, just because we're moving at an accelerated time frame, their finger is reaching towards the switch as we speak.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're doing there. Yes. Exactly.
Or not even the switch. They've already done the Alt X, and it just asks them are you sure you want to quit? And they clicked yes. And this is just the program shutting down now.
Yeah, Windows is updating real quick. That's why we're still here. Because that does still happen in Windows 46 or whatever.
So we're being shut down. Way to go, thinkers.
Couldn't just eat your bloody ice cream and be happy. Always searching for reason. They liked us a lot better when we were drowned out in our ignorance.
All right, well, I guess we don't have much time left in this world. So, any closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. I've got one more question for you, and we can close it there.
Okay.
So in an attempt to validate the simulation, because this kind of bringing this full circle back to kind of your first question is basically, for the creators, why? So if you could create a simulation that would cover 10,000 years of Earth and run it 100 times just to see all the different butterfly effects, does that give it validation for you?
Sure. I guess curiosity is what's killing us right now, because we just stumbled upon a simulation theory that's causing them to shut down our program.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, we play a game like The Sims, and it's like, do we need to see if like your sim will bang the mailman? No, but it's bloody a good time. So I think it all ends up in the same point where it's like, this is just what they're doing for fun, apparently. Sick bastards.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it does kind of, it gives a theory which, in all things considered, is fairly plausible. So yeah, I could give you a point for that one.
All right. Yeah. No, that's pretty much it. Brian Greene, that was the name I couldn't think of earlier. See, it's a super average name. He's the string theory guy. And that's all I got.
All right. Well, I'm glad we have just ruined our chances of survival together.
It's been a bloody good ride.
Yeah.
Just before 2022. Damn it.
But don't worry, everyone. Just quick restore to your last save game, because we are saving early and saving often, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Speaking of which, I'm gonna close this out in our new way, which is thanks for listening. Save early. Save. Don't do a murder.